on the story, we begin in downtown Portland, where early this morning, some of the region's top business leaders and elected officials met to talk about the future of homeless spending, specifically when it comes to Metro's controversial supportive housing services tax, which pays for much of the area's homeless programs. The big question today, should that tax be extended or scaled back? It's our big story tonight.
If you're like me at this point, you are extremely vitamin D deficient, you are grumpy, you are angry, and so therefore we decided to put on a happy program for you about homelessness services in our community today. Really pick everybody's spirits up.
Well, there's nothing like starting what often feels like a stuffy presentation with some humor. That was the head of the Portland Metro Chamber kicking things off this morning in a forum focused on the future of the region's money spent on homeless services. Okay, we talk a lot about this topic on our show, and before we get into it tonight, I want to address those of you sitting on your couch right now, rolling your eyes or grabbing the remote to change the channel because you're just sick of hearing about homelessness. Look, I get it. But what I also get is that homelessness is not getting any better, and it's not going to unless we have these conversations and dig into the data and try and understand its complexities. Because if I've learned anything in my years reporting on this crisis, there is no one right answer to fix it. And that was one of the main points of today's discussion.
Look at the headline, homelessness is a housing problem. Now, some of you are going to come right back at me and you say, well, wait a minute, there's so many personal circumstances going on here. You've got drug addiction, you have behavioral health, you've got a whole host of other personal issues that those who are experiencing homelessness are facing.
All right, that was Senior Policy Advisor John Tapania. He works at Eco Northwest and focuses on economic development, housing, and social policy. Today, he shared his analysis of the controversial tax that gets a lot of attention, the Supportive Housing Services Tax, or SHS. It's money collected by regional government Metro meant to address homelessness. Now, here's where it gets a little dense. In 2022, 15 million of those collected taxpayer dollars were spent. And in 2024, so last year, that amount grew to $255 million. This tax now funds nearly half of all our region's homeless services, according to the Portland Metro Chamber. Now, for those of you who don't know, only a portion of the population pays this tax, about 70,000 households across Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties. And it breaks down like this. Take a look. It's a 1% tax on income above $125,000 for individuals and income above $200,000 for couples filing jointly. There's also a 1% tax on some businesses. But back to today's presentation. The report looked at how much of this tax money has been collected, how much has been spent, and what services have been created, seeing as we're about halfway through the life of the tax. It's set to expire in 2031, and there are questions about what to do next.
And a critical decision lies ahead. All of you will have to be considering this. Should we extend and refine this investment beyond 2031, which is when the measure is set to expire, or begin to prepare to scale it down?
Back in 2020, when the measure was first passed by voters, there were some promises Metro made, some 10-year goals. Those included connecting at least 5,000 households experiencing homelessness to permanent supportive housing and stabilizing at least 10,000 households at risk of or experiencing homelessness. Metro says they've surpassed or are close to reaching those goals already. But the future of the tax and the amount of money it's expected to bring in the next few years is not looking great.
I would call it maybe you'd call it the fiscal valley of death, where you got this big surge at the beginning because of the capital gains and all the delayed payments, et cetera. They sort of surge up, and now all of a sudden it's sort of normalizing, and so for collections it's flattened out. It's going to flatten out until 2026, and then starts to get into a normal cadence again and grows with incomes in the population.
But that low forecasting, or fiscal valley of death, as he put it, has been a point of contention. Many call this tax volatile, including Multnomah County leaders. In years past, Eco Northwest initially predicted the tax would bring in $250 million annually. But this graph from today's presentation shows how much it has varied. In the first full year it was collected, fiscal year 2023, it far outperformed that estimate at more than $340 million, and it was close to doing that the following year too.
Yet another echo under projection. We did.
You're least consistent.
Yeah, we did that with PSEF as well.
Okay, they laugh, but those under projections for how much money this tax will bring in are already being felt here in Multnomah County. It is a big reason the county chair is saying that major cuts could be coming to homeless services, sparking anxiety for many frontline providers. We'll have a story on one of those providers tomorrow night. The county's homeless department is facing a budget gap in the neighborhood of $100 million, closer to $70 million if they don't put money in a rainy day fund. But they blame much of this shortfall on the prediction that they will get less money from Metro's supportive housing services tax. But policy advisors countered that today and said it's more a money management issue.
But that creates sort of the management challenges. Especially ones like you've seen Multnomah County challenged with. They had a bunch of carryover money from years in the past, dug into a fair bit of it apparently in this current fiscal year, and now that growth is not there in the future.
We learned today Multnomah County's auditor is conducting an audit on how the county has been using these SHS dollars from Metro. More to come on that for sure. I also caught up with Metro President Lynn Peterson this morning, and here's what she had to say about this report.
I thought it made it very clear that while we have met all the goals of our regional program, it still isn't enough.
Now, President Peterson has been pushing to make changes to the SHS tax, which includes slightly lowering the tax rate, allowing the tax revenue to be used to build affordable housing, and perhaps most importantly, extending the tax by 2 decades to 2050, far beyond its current expiration date of 2031.
It is the majority of the money in the system now, and we are also seeing federal money looking like it might be completely reduced or not coming into the region at all. So our dependence on this source is going to increase, which of course leads to, so what do we do in 5 years?
So my follow-up question for her, why extend the tax when its forecasted future looks, for a lack of a better word, grim?
Obviously, as we're heading into hard economic times in this region, both just from the overall economy of the United States, but also locally, combined with the people are leaving Portland proper. They're going to the suburbs, they're going to the rest of the state, or they're leaving the state completely. We're going to see those two variables really have an impact on the amount of money coming in. But having at least a sustained, consistent amount of money in the program will help in the long run. So it's better than having nothing.
And President Peterson's proposal for SHS tax reform was potentially going to be on the ballot this spring for voters to decide on its future, but that's not happening. There's a chance the proposal is ready for the November election, which will no doubt be a crucial vote on the future of homeless spending in the region. So, if that proposal was on the table today, would you vote to extend the SHS tax to 2050 while slightly lowering the tax rate, or let the current SHS tax expire in 2031? Let us know and explain why you would vote whichever way you're feeling. Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call us and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. All right, we're taking a live look at a neighborhood meeting that's happening right now in Portland's Central East Side. The Hosford-Abernathy Neighborhood District is meeting to talk about the incoming sobering center. Multnomah County bought a building to house the facility off Southeast Grand Avenue. It's something first responders have been waiting for years, a place to take people who are under the influence instead of bringing them to emergency rooms. Now, the timeline for when that sobering center could be open is a bit unclear. The last we heard was by 2026, with efforts to get it open before then. All right, Catherine Cook is at this meeting tonight. Again, that's what you're looking at right now. Stick around for her full story tonight on the news at 11. And while we're on the topic of homeless spending, we know you love it, let's get to some of your thoughts from our big story from last night. We looked at the upcoming closure of a tiny home village in North Portland along the Peninsula Crossing Trail. It's set to close sometime this spring to make way for 50 townhomes meant for low-income first-time home buyers. The city says the closure of the site was the plan all along, with construction expected to begin this summer. We heard from one man who stays there now who is unsure about what he'll do next. We're told the group running the site is working to move most of the people into other city-run shelters. Larry wrote into us saying, "This is the first time I've heard anyone say a closure is part of the plan. These kinds of flip-flops make us shake our heads with dismay. It just looks like Portland, Multnomah County can't get their act together. I would say no closure until enough beds can be found for all the people there now. Do not put them back on the street." Mark chimed in saying, "Classic waste here. Spends lots of money on building a bunch of tiny homes for homeless folks to move into on a temporary basis, then come back and tear them down to build low-cost housing. Why not build the ownable housing elsewhere?" And Jennifer wrote to us with a question that several of you had as well, writing, "Sad to just hear about plans to disband the tiny house village when we need so many housing options. Will the tiny homes be moved to another location in Portland so they can still be used? Surely they're not going to be discarded." Well, good question, Jennifer. I asked the city what happens with the tiny homes themselves, and turns out they will be reused. They told me in a statement today, quote, "All of the units at Peninsula Crossing will be assessed, cleaned, and repaired before being redeployed at other village shelter locations. The city intends to use the pods to expand capacity at existing shelter sites, and some Peninsula Crossing units will replace units at other shelter sites that have seen more significant wear and tear." Well, coming up next on the story, this summer marks more than 3 decades since a teenager disappeared from Southeast Portland.
There's no activity in bank accounts, social security numbers, DMV records. It's as if she just dropped off the face of the earth.
But Krista De La Rosa's mother and Multnomah County detectives have not given up on trying to find her. The clue that they hope will jog someone's memory and lead them to answers is next when the story returns. Tonight, another story in our Still Searching series looking at cold cases from years gone by around the Pacific Northwest. This summer will mark 35 years since 19-year-old Krista De La Rosa disappeared from Southeast Portland. But despite the decades in between, her mother and investigators have not stopped looking for her, holding on to that possibility that Krista is still alive. Ashley Grams has the story.
She was a very, very loving girl. She loved hugs and she just got mixed up with the wrong people.
Photos of Krista De La Rosa chronicle her life from early years.
She must be about one, I don't know.
Through elementary school, to the day she walked across the stage at David Douglas High School in Southeast Portland.
Yeah, that's her graduation, 88.
But the memories her mother Helen hold on to end when Krista turned 19 years old.
She would leave, and then she would come back, and she would leave and come back.
Helen says her daughter walked out the door on June 27, 1990, and never came home.
And then she started out the door, and I says, "Where are you going?" And she says, "I have a friend waiting for me," or something like that.
These are the original reports from 1990.
Detective Patrick Leahy with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office investigated her disappearance.
And this one came across my table initially about 3 years ago.
Those reports say a friend watched Krista get into a cream-colored 1980s Oldsmobile with a vinyl top at Southeast 130th and Division in Portland.
The driver of that vehicle was an African-American male in his 30s. She got into the car with him and left.
Before she left, Krista wrote a letter to her parents.
And then this is a copy of the letter. "Just go on. I'll keep in contact. I'll be careful. I won't let anyone hurt me. Please forgive me and always keep me in your hearts and prayers. Love always, your daughter, Krista."
Over the years, detectives haven't found any trace of her.
There's no activity, bank accounts, social security numbers, DMV records. It's as if she just dropped off the face of the earth.
Detective Leahy says there's no evidence Krista is alive, but there's also no confirmation that she's died.
She could be in another country. She could have moved.
And if that's the case, it's possible Krista would look like this. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children created this age progression photo of Krista in her 50s.
I don't think she's my little girl anymore.
I go back through the report and I reread it 100 times. Just, did I miss something the time before?
While investigators have never figured out who picked up Krista that day in June, they did have a license plate.
The officer at the time ran that license plate through DMV records and it came back as unable to locate, which usually means that you got one number off or one letter off or the sequence was off. Well, had we had that information, we would have known who the registered owner of that vehicle was, and this could have been solved 30 years ago.
There's still that glimmer of hope that will be back.
It's word of mouth, it's witnesses coming forward, it's friends that knew her giving tips.
Helen's love for her daughter hasn't wavered. She's still holding out hope for that one tip, for answers.
If I saw her, I would just tell her that I loved her very much, and whatever's happened in the last 35 years, she could still come home.
That was Ashley Grams reporting. Now, it's worth noting that after our interview with the detective on this case, he retired. The case has been handed off to another detective, and the sheriff's office is still looking for tips about Krista's disappearance. So if you know anything, call the tip line at the bottom of your screen, 503-988-0560. If you think you might know something about what happened to Krista, let investigators know. That number, one more time, is 503-988-0560. Now, if there's a cold case in your community that you'd like Ashley and our team to look into, let us know by sending an email. The address is there on your screen. Still searching at kgw.com. Well, coming up next on The Story, our damage control series continues with a multi-generational panel of Black women talking about the pressure of using products like hair relaxers, which studies have shown are linked to serious health issues like cancer, their common experiences, and what they believe accountability should look like in regards to beauty companies. That's when The Story returns. Well, now to our continuing damage control series focused on beauty products like hair relaxers, which thousands of women blame for health issues like cancer. For many Black women, hair has been a topic of discussion and in some cases, discrimination at some point in their life. And the societal pressure to use hair relaxing products spans generations. Rochelle Aline takes us inside a panel of women of different ages and perspectives.
First of all, thank you guys.
Womanhood is not a universal experience.
We're here to talk about our hair.
A quick poll of 8 Black women across 4 generations about their hair makes that clear.
What was the style growing up?
When I was younger, it was like you had like 4 braids when your mama did them.
It wasn't dyed and layered and asymmetrical. You really wasn't. You really wasn't cool.
Afros. And we wore afros.
When I got into high school in the late 90s, was at sew-ins, right? Everyone wanted straight hair.
But even with all of this versatility, when it comes to hair, there are still common experiences for Black women.
Do you guys remember a defining moment, or was there a time where you recognized, like, my hair in and of itself may not be what's in or accepted?
When you go to apply for a job, you have to fit in to get in.
And I remember my first job, 4 weeks in, I'm probably 3 hairdos in, and my supervisor comes to me and she says, Delina, I searched for you on the Most Wanted because you change your hair so much. And I was like,
And to assimilate, many turn to a treatment to loosen or straighten their locks for years.
Can I just ask by show of hands who's had a perm here? Wow.
And Can I clarify? Are we talking about perm or a relaxer? Because those are two different things, right?
You're right. So I guess a relaxer. I know sometimes we use it interchangeably. So yeah, a relaxer. Yeah. Every single. I mean, I'm the anomaly. Most Black women have had a relaxer at some point in their life.
Starting at 8.
And now health concerns are turning many of those women off.
2013, I decided there was no more relaxers for me. It's because my first cousins, we've all been getting relaxers since 8 and 9 years old. And all of the females that I just named all have fibroid tumors. We all do. And we're like, wait a minute. I started doing research, saw a slight association, a correlation to our relaxers, and I just asked the family as a whole, can we as a family stop doing this?
The companies, they're not looking out for us. They're looking out for the economical, they're looking for that.
What does accountability look like? What should it look like?
We as Black women are an economic force. These companies are run by multimillionaires. We have power in our economic voice.
And I think it's the exposure, to your point too, right? Making it widely known, putting the labels on there, the warning, right? Leaving it, up to the buyer, but make it known.
I think accountability starts within the community, because if we don't educate each other, how can we collectively rise up and say we don't want to support this brand?
Through this conversation, I hope it will spark other people to think about not only our conversation and what's in our products and how we do our hair, but to think about why do these Black women have to have a conversation around this.
We have to talk to our children, the ones that we touch, about loving your hair the way it is.
Well, there is much more to that conversation that we didn't have time for right now, but we'll be streaming the extended conversation over on KGW Plus tonight at 8 o'clock. KGW Plus is our free TV app that you can download right now for free on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. Again, the extended report from tonight's story airs at 8 on KGW Plus. Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.